Good afternoon, everyone. We have a very exciting panel ahead. This could be a barn burner of a panel, so I'm looking forward to it. And I'm honored to be joined by two industry luminaries that are willing to share their views and perspectives on real-world network automation. As many of you are aware, Gluware has rolled out large-scale automation at both Merck and Mastercard, and we announced both rollouts right here at ONUG. We're here to check in on the progression of Merck, and we're here to also get a sneak peek into Kevin Carney's mind.
God forbid.
Sal will share the current status of Merck, and Kevin has recently retired after a storied career, and all thoughts shared on stage are his own. So with that, if I could ask each of you gentlemen to please provide a quick intro and background.
Hey, I'm Salvatore Rannazzisi. I'm a network architect at Merck. This is my third year at ONUG, and great pleasure to be on the stage with these guys again this year.
Oh, my name is Kevin Carney, and I've been in the network world for about 4 decades. Yes, 4 decades. I look like it too. In that time, I've worked in various sectors within industry. I worked in the government field as well. So I've seen the good and the bad of just about everything. And I'm here at Jeff's wishes.
Thank you. Thank you. So Kevin, let's start with you. How have you witnessed network infrastructure change?
Well, for decades, we've seen a lot of stuff happen. We've gone from, Ethernet, where you plugged in a tap, and life was over that network per se, to virtual networks. And from a LAN perspective, in a WAN, we had BiSync, and we had multiplexers to a T1, X25, and now we got 10, 100 gigabit. Oh my God, these things that have come about in 40 years are the technologies that have enabled all those things that we take for granted. The internet, for example, and your cell phone, or I guess they call them mobiles now. I go back a ways.
Right.
And just about everything that everybody just reaches out is enabled by the commodity that everybody thinks of us in terms of the network. While all of this infrastructure's changed, what hasn't changed is that when your operations or engineering staff walks up to a router and has to make a change, he walks up there and he types, IP address something, and what happens after that is kind of an interesting phenomenon. Over 90% of the issues are all done by manual error, and it's not changed in 4 decades. And so if you look at the word insanity, most of us know that it's defined by you just keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. 4 decades, man, are we frickin' crazy? We must be. We must be totally insane. So there you go.
Nice.
40 years of insanity, and I look at 2.
So Sal, how has Merck's network been managed prior to your rollout?
Exactly how he said it. Insanity, pretty much, but really by paper standards, right? And this is the big issue, right? Because we take all this time getting the standard approved, getting it signed off, and documenting all the stuff, and by the time it got published, the standard already was old, but there was really no way to get that standard out in production in any reasonable amount of time, and as a result, constantly out of compliance. Like, you would publish a standard, and there was no way to get it out over tens of thousands of devices, right?
What about like scripting and things like that you guys started?
Yeah, there were some people who tried some scripting and that kind of thing. We had some old legacy tools that would copy a tertiary copy of the configuration over, and a lot of the stuff required very expensive Perl scripting knowledge by a certain vendor, and you can only go so far with it. So it really was not an effective way to manage it.
Good. Thank you. So Kevin, where does automation fit into network lifecycle and network management?
Well, I'm going to talk about the one thing that is the wart on my nose. and that is the word brownfield. Okay, I think I want everybody to concentrate on that brownfield because it's out there, and it's going to be out there for a very long time. And until we address the brownfield, we're going to continue to do the insanity piece. So the first one of the phase that I have of what automation is about to Kevin is that we're going to get rid of the manual piece, right? It's going to be automation that's going to enable us to be able to provide our customers with a more stable environment so they can do their business. Whether or not we have a customer that's out in the real world or if it's an internal customer, we're going to give them that. The next thing I think that's going to help with automation is the security portion. When you think about each one of these routers, switches, firewalls, there's an individual that goes on there and he puts that standard configuration, maybe. And from there, you hope that all the rest of them, because it's kind of hard to look at a golden configuration across everything, it's pretty difficult to do. So that's the first thing. Automation should help prevent that all the way, front to back. And the next thing, which is really often overlooked, is that portion of the network when there's an issue. You got some really smart guys, and all of a sudden, you've drained the swamp, and the alligators are all over your ass. Okay? And everybody's on there, and they're doing this, and you got 5, 10 guys that are after changing, and eventually, they get the smart idea that it's got to be an access control list, so let's take the damn thing off. And then they find out that that's not it, but do they put the access control list on? Well, you forget about it, right? Trouble's gone, everybody goes back to sleep, and that access control list ain't on. Okay, so automation should be able to, or will be able to recognize that because it checks the standard configuration, and that list goes back on today, not 6 weeks from now. The next thing is auditing. A lot of these industry sectors out there and government, you have to provide an audit to somebody. And depending on whether it's annual, biannual, quarterly, whatever, providing these audits is difficult. Not all devices have an easy way of doing it, checking it to a standard, all the rest of that stuff. That's really hard to do, and it takes hours. It is a labor-intensive task. Sometimes they're ongoing. Well, if you can go out and grab the configuration, check it against a golden configuration, and you're doing it every day, then when they say, okay, we want to do this standard, okay, the standard's the gold, and we're going to check it against all your configurations, well, here they are. The labor reduces, and that can't be anything to make a bunch of people happy that's been doing this for years. They're going to be ecstatic.
So remediation is a pretty important.
I would say that remediation is going to be very important, both from that troubleshooting piece and then audit and just the whole shooting match, right? You want to bring it in and check.
Right.
So there we go.
And how about roles? Roles?
Roles?
Yep.
Oh, I like roles. Do you like roles? The role I'm going to try and say this correctly, and I'm probably going to screw it up. A role that allows different people to do different things, and I can't grasp the name right now, is vital, and you want to be able to give the right people the right access from a security and from an execution point of view.
Right.
So, well, it took me forever to say that.
Or back. Well,
yeah, there we go.
You're retired now.
God,
there you go.
I'm retired. I don't need to remember this stuff.
Hasn't been that long. So thank you, Kevin. Sal, what are the top use cases that Merck is currently automating?
Yeah, there's quite a few of them. As I've discussed on the stage and at other ONUGs, we had focused on some very key projects and getting common services standard across our device, and compliance was, of course, part of that. So we've done that. We've done a lot of stuff. We started with routers. That's been done for quite some time now. What we've done recently is code promotions on routers, right? When you go to a certain version of code, you have to do firmware, and that was a feature request we asked you guys to do, which has been working for a year now, so that's been tremendous. And we now, since Dallas, we have a full-scale automated layer 2 environment. That includes all flavors of switches, all different ways we use these switches. Some of them are in manufacturing, some of them are for these isolated security networks. Some of them have network access control on them. So we've gone full in on a full layer 2 audit. We have models of automation for every type and every flavor of use case for every switch in our environment now, which was huge for us.
So how far along are you?
We're very far along. So we have, we're doing NAC now, which was huge. And anybody who's done NAC, there's a ton of commands on there. And that's completely done. And also we've done some very interesting things. If someone got an approval to do a NAC exception, we simply put a description on that interface. You can run the automation model again, and we'll take NAC off the interface and take things like that. So we're very far along with this, and the layer 2 stuff and routers are all done at this point.
And so can you speak to some of the benefits that are being realized today?
Oh, yeah, we have managed service providers, like a lot of people do. And to make global changes on all of our network devices, you would have to get a statement of work done, and then the managed service provider would have to ramp up because they didn't have the staffing to do it. And then you had to wait 6 to 9 months for them to log in every device by hand and do it. So we've really cut the time back to over 90% on this. Like, there's no managed service provider. If we make the change, like someone just asked me to make a change for load balancing on port channels. It was literally a 5-minute change in Gluware, selected all devices we wanted to do, put it in. It took longer, to the next point this morning, it took longer for the process to catch up to the automation at this point. And that's the biggest issue that we have now, is that the processes, right? No, that was it, I think.
Anything else you want to share? Is that good?
No, I think we've gone a long way, and I think getting away from the paper standards paradox, right? That we make a paper standard change, and we had no way to go and do it, so we're constantly out of compliance, and we would always fail audits on the network.
So Kevin, let's broaden this a little bit. What do you feel is the best approach to take for an enterprise to move forward with automation?
For any of the approaches, there's some common parameters that you got to consider. Every one of these we're going to talk about requires labor hours. You can't avoid it. There's no such thing as a free lunch. You're going to have certain skill levels that are going to be required for the different types of automation that you're going to do. There's always the complexity of the change. How difficult, is it going to take to be able to put out the features and correlate them between other features, et cetera. Then you have security concerns, of course, in flight and at rest. Oh, and the one I forgot before, role-based security. That's a consideration for any way that you do this, right? So the first way is that you can do things the way you've been doing it, and that's command line scripting. And command line scripting has been used by every network engineer for 4 decades. And you can continue to do it that way, and maybe think that you're sophisticating the configurations so that they're going to be more independent, and et cetera. Or maybe you think that you're going to be able to make these so an operator can't screw it up, but you're still talking cut and paste. And I've never made a mistake cut and paste. No way. At all, ever. And when it really comes down to it, that approach is manual. You're just not even getting away with it. And the next one is, very popular, talked about a lot, and that's doing formal scripting. It's called, I believe, roll your own. rolling your own is that going out and getting a scripting language, getting a catalog, creating playbooks, and there are some advantages to it because you can go in there and say, okay, I just want to tweak this in a certain way, and yada, yada, yada. But on the bad side, you're going to have to make a playbook for every device that there's out there, and they're all different, and the different functionalities have to be considered, and that's a lot of work. Creating all these playbooks, it's going to take time, a lot of time. And now that you've got one of these playbooks created, it's not obsolete. But now you have to start going through that maintenance. And everybody's real busy. And to think about that, you need to go back and check, verify that script is still, correct. You make some iOS changes and you think that script is, you got to go back and check it. So this is just a continuous, labor and skill levels that you have to have. Well, you got a bunch of network engineers. And they're always happy to take on new stuff, right? So they could learn the scripting language, but you're taking them out from what they've been doing, and it's going to take a while for them to get experience, and now they have to do all of these things, so there might be some differences between the devices, and they're constantly learning, new things. The other approach is you're going to have a developer do it. Okay, that's great. He knows nothing about networks. He is completely lost. And so to make him relevant, you need to have a network guy. Well, great. Now you got two resources working on the same thing. Well, that's not a labor lost. That makes lots of sense. That's what we're going to do. Then you have some other things. You're going to have to come up with a way you're going to do role-based, role-based stuff. And then you have the security of the scripts, and you have security of the databases. I'll probably be shot by saying this, but that's okay. I'm retired. My wife's ready for me to die anytime now. And that is, really, to me, this is still a manual effort. It's manual, in terms of executing the scripts, and you may be able to put it in a pseudo-automated way, but, this is manual. Well, and that last one, obviously, is off the shelf. You go and you go to Amazon and you say, I want to do, I want to do some automation, and Amazon recommends a whole bunch of ones, and just happens that Glue may be one of the ones they recommend, and then you give them your PayPal card. This is definitely the non-manual approach, right? It allows you to work in a configuration outside of actually having to push something. So that's definitely the first thing. Maybe we break insanity. By the way, the other two are still, don't forget, you're insane. The network staff is going to be making those changes. They're literate. They know what's going on. They recognize that this is a part of this. They're savvy. But just like anything, there's a learning curve. That learning curve is going to take some time for folks to understand what this is all about. But the difference here is then rolling your own is that knowledge they gain from the first time they do this, the second time they create configurations, it's going to be transferable. They're going to understand what has to happen, and that knowledge is going to be beneficial from now until evermore. And the next is GUI. Instead of having to go out there and do scripting and all the rest of that stuff, it's presented to you in a GUI format, and it'll be recognizable, and it'll be easier to train others. You got a bunch of people that already know it. Now you can train other people to do small things based upon role base. Okay, and it becomes more of an ongoing capability. So the next thing that you need to consider, you should probably consider, is that vendors are going to change their iOS. They're going to add features, etc. So instead of having to go back to your playbook and make modifications and all the rest of that stuff, it could and probably and is so simple as just to add just a single, parameter in your config, and you're done. You're done. No more screwing around. You're done. And then the last thing is this database is the source of knowledge. It's the source of all knowledge. It's the brains. It knows everything. It can be fed by other applications, and it can feed other applications, so that you got this information, and now you can use it in different ways. But it's the source of all that's true.
Excellent. Sal, can you describe the special sauce, in your own words, of Gluware, and for the audience, some of the challenges you hit and how you overcame them?
Well, look at the time. But no, no, but the special, what's very different about Gluware that we found, not only did we land thousands of commands, we've taken out thousands of commands. So over the years, people would go from platform to platform to platform. They would just simply copy and paste, forget about the standards, right? So Gluware is really declarative. So when you describe a model of automation and you're pulling in like show, run, begin interface or something like that, right? You're pulling that data into the tool, and then it's looking at a regex, and what's matching that regex, it will put in or will take out. And that really is the trick to me, that not only can we put stuff in, like pushing it out there, like copying, pasting commands, like Kevin said, but if it's like intelligent copying and pasting, but also it's taking commands out is really it. So we did find some things that were wrong. Like we found telnet on VTY lines, right? So we simply went into the tool, made one quick change, a custom removal script, took it out. We found some issues with certain character lengths on like class maps or something like that, and we were able to remediate those very quickly as well. And that's the whole point, that we can remediate things very, very quickly now and keep the network in compliance and change everything.
Thank you, Sal. So I was going to ask about the future. However, I think we'll skip right to the end since we're right at the end of our time. Kevin, are there any final comments that you would like to make or share with the audience today?
I look at networks in general, and I talked about the 40 years of us doing things the same way, and we always change networks. You go from one network to another network to another network. And everybody knows that network that you just created is going to be obsolete and need to change and new features. And it's just an ongoing process, right? But what hasn't changed, again, is how we manage this infrastructure. If we change that and we go to automation and we attack that brown field that exists, that's a legacy, right? That is changing how we do business after 40 years. And to me, that is the most significant thing that we can do. It really is. And, I'm looking forward to seeing it.
With that, we'll conclude our panel. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah,
thank you to
Jeff.
the audience.
Thanks,
really appreciate it.
Yeah.